What's up, everybody? Joe White here, and I just watched part 6 of the Mr. McMahon documentary. This one is entitled Finish, and it's appropriately titled. I am going to be doing a little bit of an aftermath show about this because I want to go over some things that are coming out um, after the documentary, after the dust has settled, so to speak, from this. This is exactly what I thought it would be. We build him up, and then the last 10 minutes of this, or last 30 minutes of this documentary is focused on the lawsuits and allegations. It's only the last 15 minutes is devoted really to the Janelle Grant lawsuit where she's named. Um, but we'll get there. We'll get there. We start off episode 6 talking about computers. Folks, I want to tell you guys, I have computers in my brain too. One's running Windows, the other's running Apple. And then there's this third one, kind of weird. Goddamn, pal. It's running Linux. What the fuck? Does anybody, you know? And then they asked this guy talking about, I got two computers in my head. One's thinking differently than the other. And then there's a third one. And they're like, well, what's that one about, Vince? What's the third computer? It's thinking about something fun that involves sex. Come on. You're in your gosh darn late 70s, mid 70s. And this shows you, and we'll get there, but Bruce Pritchard, my God, how this man has aged since you go back and look at these first few episodes when they started interviewing people back in 2021 and 2022 up till now. My God, has Bruce Pritchard aged? Just look at the hair. But anyway, we'll get there. They start off this episode by talking about them switching over to the PG era and how they did it primarily to attract sponsors. And that's why, as edgy as they become, this is why they will never go back. This is why they will continue to bleep Chance. Maybe not so on Netflix, but this is why USA has bleeped Chance. This is why USA has, or, on the Fox era of things, which they didn't mention them going to Fox at all, which is crazy to me. This is why Fox randomly blacks out the screen and everything else, because they are rated TV PG, and they're doing it because of sponsors. Their main reason why they will never go back to TV 14 is Mattel. Their action figure deal with Mattel. That's it. I've said it for years. Yeah, they can have beer sponsors and people at Prime and all this. Look at how they're distancing themselves from Logan Paul since all the Logan Paul lawsuits have started. But anyway, they go into the PG era and how they, wanted to get away from all the sex and, the sexual stuff. And then they go into the concussion deal about how they, with the Chris Benoit thing and CTE, and how at first they were against CTE. And you even have Stone Cold Steve Austin on there going, I don't believe in CTE, when it's been medically proven. They shown the scans of Chris Benoit's brain. It may not be the diving headbutts that did it to him, but all the chair shots to the head that he's taken over the years, and the shots to the head. And then they go, well, if you're taking shots to the head, then either you or the person you're working with isn't doing anything right. I'm like, what a cop-out. What a cop-out. And now they're working with the Chris Nowinski Concussion Institute thing up there in Massachusetts, up there in New England, which I think is a good thing. I think it's a good thing that they done chair shots to the head. And it's funny that they do mention AEW. They do mention AEW as competition, but they don't look at what kind of competition it is. You have this thing of, I think it would have been awesome to show a contrast with competition of how WWE got away from that, and here's AEW bringing some of that right back into the fold, with the chair shots to the head and blood and guts and all this mess. Plastic bags being used. Now, we don't go into that. We got to go into it here. And again, I'm not a Vince McMahon apologist, but by any means, I'll save that for Bruce Pritchard. But it's kind of funny how WWE gets raked over the coals for it, but AEW doesn't. And AEW is still doing it in modern times. Again, this whole uh, this whole documentary feels like it should have an asterisk in that was another time. Anyway, after the Chris Benoit stuff, they start talking about all the dead wrestlers that have died on their watch. And, McMahon talks about, hey, these guys did it to themselves. The only one that they kind of claim responsibility for is Owen Hart. And even then, in the Owen Hart stuff, they talk about how they sued the manufacturer of the harness because it was defective and they knew it was defective. That doesn't change, the fact that, he still died on their watch. But anyway, I do think it's funny also as a lark, harken back to the other episodes. I do find it funny how they don't mention Vince Russo at all by name. When they talk about WCW folding, they're like, oh, it had many different people running it, and they show Russo on the screen, but for like 2 seconds. It's as if Vince Russo never existed in this world. But then they go in talking about, Shane McMahon's running of or return to the company and his match with The Undertaker at WrestleMania that year, and how, he finally got an attaboy from his dad. He finally got that show of respect from his dad. And that's all that Shane ever really wanted. And they're like, and Shane even goes, yeah, I got a hug that night. I had to earn that one though. Um, and then they talk about plans for succession and how, again, they harken back to it in the last episode. To harken back to the last episode, they talk about how they thought that one of the McMahon children would be running this thing. But that was not meant to be, because then the allegations start coming in, and they do touch on Trump, the ties to Trump briefly. They talk about Battle of the Billionaires, blah blah blah. Again, this is nothing new for wrestling fans like me, who have been watching this stuff since I was 6 years old. This is nothing new. But they then start talking about the allegations and about how he stepped down. Now, what they don't talk about is, what they do not say is that Stephanie McMahon resigned from that company twice. The first time was a leave of absence. Wasn't really a resignation, leave of absence. And that when the first allegations came out, or right before they came out, she stepped away. And then when Vince, quote unquote, retired, she came back. And then when he came back into the fold again, when he forced his way back in, because he was bored sitting on his butt at the house, I do find it funny how in there are scenes throughout these episodes where we do see the infamous painting, the infamous oil painting of Vince McMahon that he has hanging in his house. Anyway, that made me chuckle. But then getting back to the, Vince McMahon, the Janelle Grant stuff comes out. And, well, actually, once he forced his way back into the company, Stephanie then leaves for good. She's like, that's it. I've had enough. And it makes me wonder It really makes me wonder if she would have just stayed on and said, "Hey, I'm taking another leave of absence," and then the Janelle Grant stuff comes out, would we see Stephanie running the company right now with Nick Khan? I think so. And I think the company would be a little bit better for it. Because again, they even go into this, once he comes back and sells the company to TKO and Ari Emanuel, you have all these guys talking about, even Meltzer. Oh, I think you needed somebody with big business acumen to run the thing, and the McMahon children just didn't have that. And I'm just like, guys, this is their birthright. It's not about big business acumen and all this. They were the heirs to the kingdom. They were the heirs to the throne, or at least should have been, in my mind. A McMahon should be at the helm of this thing, whether it be Stephanie or Shane. And all accounts were when Vince left the first time and Vince and Stephanie took over as a co-CEO and Nick Khan, everybody was happy. They liked Stephanie. They liked the way she ran the company. But then, like I said, Vince decides he's going to force his way back in, and Stephanie's like, you know what? I I think Stephanie knew what was going to happen. I think maybe she had been tipped off as to the extent of all this, and was like, you know what? I'm getting away from you, you scumbag. And if we are to believe what we see in this documentary, Shane McMahon has probably distanced himself and disowned his ass too. And I can't say I blame them. You cheated and disrespected our mother. You stole our birthright from us and gave it away to somebody else for money that they're not really probably, I mean, they may see a little bit of it, but, you know, you bent the knee and sold the kingdom down the drain. I wouldn't want to be around that man or have anything to do with it, and I wouldn't want my grandkids to have anything to do with him either, or my kids to have anything to do with him either. But then they finally, go to the Janelle Grant stuff and the allegations. And the one thing that struck me from this episode was they sit down with Bruce Pritchard right at the beginning of 2024 in January. Um, Now, the Janelle Grant stuff happened in 2023. And I believe that he had stepped down in 2023 again because Slim Jim was going to pull their sponsorship and a big contest going on from SummerSlam last year. And once Vince left again, they came back and said, okay, we'll renew our sponsorship. Everything will continue as normal if you're going to get rid of him. But then they sit Bruce Pritchard down in 2024. After all this has come to light, if you to believe the timeline on this documentary, and they go, okay, you've seen the first two episodes of this documentary. What'd you think? And Bruce Pritchard's like, it's a damn hit piece. Y'all are not showing the real Vince McMahon who made my wife comfortable while she fought cancer and all this and that. I'm like, dude, come on. And then the day after the Netflix deal, the Janelle Grant lawsuit's filed officially. And so I'm sitting here looking at Bruce and going, dude, I get it. We don't know the real Vince McMahon. And he's sitting there going, this is a hit piece. You're not wanting to show the human side of him. Well, he's not letting you see it. How can we show something that we don't have access to? What are we supposed to do, Bruce? Just take your fucking word for it? What are we supposed to do? Just take anybody's word for it? Oh, he's a good person. Well, let your damn guard down and show us if you're a good person or not. But no, we don't get that. We get this half shoot, half worked, half baked version of Vince McMahon who's talking about having 3 different computers running in his head. And more often than not, it's the kooky Linux one that's winning. So you can only, see what we're meant to see. And I don't think Vince had any intention. Yes, he let his guard down a little bit. And if you notice, as this series has gone on, my opinion on this has changed. I still think it takes two to tango, and I still think Janelle Grant is no angel in all this. But Vince McMahon openly flaunting his affairs, openly saying he's cheating on his wife, he's a scumbag. He's an absolute scumbag. Now, is everybody perfect? No, but golly, man. You're not, I mean, not everybody's in Playboy flaunting their affairs as if it's some grand accomplishment. Not everybody is sitting there, throwing headsets and going, fuck them. Come on. That was the big thing after the first time, after the first allegations came out, and, you know, McMahon goes on SmackDown, which they do cover in this, and he comes out there and pretty much then now together forever, pal. And what does he do? He comes back and he throws his headset or throws the microphone and he's like, fuck him. So I'm going to give an overall thought on this documentary right now. It's exactly what I said it was going to be. If anybody thought this was going to be a 6-part Janelle Grant allegations dissection, you're wrong. They already probably had 3 episodes. I mean, well, it's obvious. They already had at least 2 episodes of this in the can, ready to go when these allegations hit. And they're not going to go back and change a bunch of stuff and redo the entire show because some allegations came out and because he left the company. It's just not going to happen. From a business standpoint, it's not good to scrap all that hard work and start over from scratch. It wasn't never going to happen. Well, we expected at least more than a 30-minute blurb on it. What else do you want? They're not going to get to interview Grant. She's not going to come out and do an interview. Rita Chatterton didn't get interviewed for this. A new interview wasn't taken. They used old stuff from like the Geraldo and all this other stuff that came out back then. They do interview, like I said last time, they do interview his daughter, and they talk about Mike Tyson, and she goes, "Oh, was he already accused of rape by that point?" And they're like, "No," and the look on her face is like, "Oh shit, we hired a scumbag." So, bottom line on this whole documentary, easy for me to say. Out of 5 stars, 2.5. The pacing of the episodes was good. The structure of the episodes were good. But it's not telling, I got to take it at face value for me now. As a non-wrestling fan, if non-wrestling fans are watching this, 3.5 to 4 stars easily. But because you got to realize your target audience for this is wrestling fans who already know what's going on, because I firmly believe there's really no more casual, quote unquote, casual fans anymore. And if they are, they're quickly turned out of being casual fans because all they got to do is go on YouTube, type in WWE, and you get Wrestling Observer popping up and Post Wrestling popping up. And Fightful and all the outliers like myself popping up. I've had more people in the last year tell me that my videos have been popping up on their feed when they go looking for wrestling stuff, which I'm happy about. Thank you, algorithm. But I'm going to come back tomorrow with a little bit of an aftermath episode. I need time to sort through it all because a lot of it came out. Bill Simmons commented on this. I think I'll give a little bit of a way of it, and I'll mention it in the aftermath episode tomorrow. They talk about when they did these interviews with Vince, they would set a time in the afternoon or morning for him to come in and record. And throughout the day, he would push it back and push that back and push that back to the point where they're doing these interviews at like 11 o'clock at night. Now, granted, Vince isn't tired because Vince doesn't sleep. However, you can't really produce a good documentary and ask, hard hitting questions, I guess, when it's 11 o'clock at night and you're half a zombie yourself. But let me know what you guys thought about this episode in the comments below. We'll see you tomorrow for the Aftermath episode. And we will see you down the road.